are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Idiot sandwich what?
An idiot sandwich, Chef Ramsay.
Alright, idiots, listen up and pay close attention because I will not be repeating myself. If you need me to repeat myself, simply rewind and re-listen. So you've got your hands on Stellaris. This is a fantastic decision. It might be the smartest thing you've done in a long while. But I'm sure you're asking yourself, how on earth do I play this game? Well, do not worry, ladies and gentlemen, I have you covered today in this, an idiot's guide to Stellaris. Step 1, click on New Game. Next up, you will need to select an empire. Now, I'm going to recommend you simply click this Quick Start button here. However, you can create your own empire or use one of the other preset empires that have already been created for us. If we look at the empire creation screen, this gives us a load of options for changing how we're going to start the game and who we're going to play with. We can choose the appearance of our alien race, we can give them a name, we can choose from many unique name lists to change the way that our leaders, ships and planets will be randomly named during the game. But don't worry, you can also change these manually if you've got some even better names that you want to use. The trait screen will describe the unique characteristics of the species you're going to be playing with in Stellaris. These characteristics either add minor bonuses or minor penalties to your species. We can select the class of planet we're going to start on. Our homeworld can be a dry desert, a wet continental world, or even a frozen tundra. It's possible to select the appearance of cities in our empire, and we can choose an origin to really get the storytelling flowing. The government and ethics screen is where we really define who our empire is and what they believe in. First off, on the left here, we can choose some ethics. Ethics will have some fundamental game impacts. They'll allow us to do things like enslave aliens, or conversely, completely stop us from enslaving aliens and make us believe all life is lovely. Ugh. We also get to pick 2 civics right at the start of the game. Just like traits, civics and ethics will also provide minor bonuses to our empire. You get to pick the name, you can design a cool flag with many options available, you can choose the appearance of your ships in the game, and this cool window lets you look through all the different ship classes available and what a single ship pack will look like. The last screen will allow you to change what your empire looks like in the diplomacy window. You can set the name of your ruler, what that title is, and change a whole bunch of other things. Once you're finished, you can save your unique and definitely cool empire, and if you're really done with it, you can click done, and that will bring you onto the game details. Now, if you've been sensible and you've clicked quick start, you won't need to see this screen. For your first game, I'd probably recommend you leave all of these settings alone and just click play. The important ones to check are the difficulty setting, the size of the galaxy, which is the number of stars we can have, the number of AI empires in there, and then when the mid-game, end-game, and victory year will begin. And here we are. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, you have made it to your first game of Stellaris. This opening screen gives us a rundown on the empire we're going to be playing with. We can see the ethics, civics, and traits of our population, along with a nice bit of backstory on what's happened up till now, the year 2200 AD. But let's get rid of this screen and really start playing the game. The first thing you're going to notice is this advisor on the right is going to pop up and ask you how much of your tutorial you would like. I'd recommend you shut the damn thing down. And if you're enjoying this video, please idiotically smash that like button. This opening screen can seem a little overwhelming. There is a whole lot to see here. First off, there is the actual view in front of us, and we've got a whole host of things. There are planets, stars, different banner icons, different symbols with our flag on it, and a whole bunch of other bits and pieces. On the top of our screen here, we can see our resources and a bunch of other factors that define our empire. And on the far right, we have a nice calendar telling us the current date. Now, Stellaris is a grand strategy game. If you don't know what that means, I'm going to demonstrate quite quickly. Basically, this is a mix between a real-time strategy game like StarCraft 2 that we have to move things around, and a turn-based strategy game like Civilization. If I unpause this, the calendar will begin to move forwards and things will begin to happen in the game. That's right, once you unpause, the game moves inexorably onwards with the flow of time. We can even increase or decrease the rate at which time flows. For now, I'd recommend you pause it while we sort everything out. Underneath your resources, you have a whole host of icons that will appear here. This is where your notifications will appear, some of them in red, much more important than others. The first thing we'll need to do is choose the technologies we would like to research in the game. This is a little different to a game like Civilization. Whilst yes, there is a tech tree that you cannot see, generally the way technology works is we will get some random technologies that we can pick to research, and we can only choose one of the technologies' role. In this case, we can choose to research fusion power, which will unlock better components for our ships, improve deflectors, which will unlock better defensive modules on our ships, or quantum theory, which will improve the research output of our researchers. On the right hand side, we can see the total cost in research points for each of these technologies. In your first game, it's better to find out what everything does and just pick some technology. You're not going to know what's best straight away, but you can have a good guess. Now, we will be using some of these resources quite quickly, so it's going to be a very good idea to go through what they each mean. Energy, or energy credits, is basically a store of money in the game. It is a currency backed by energy. You can use energy credits to buy almost all of the other resources. Minerals represents unrefined raw minerals that you can find on your planets and in space. You use these to build buildings and districts and other such things on your worlds. Food is an important resource that you need to sustain your population. If it bleats, it usually needs to eat, and therefore you're going to need some food production to feed the unwashed masses. Those are our three basic resources. Next we get to our advanced or refined resources. Consumer goods represents the advanced resources and luxuries like gadgets, I'm thinking of your iPads or possibly the mobile phone you're using to watch this video, and that's required by your population in terms of upkeep. They want nice things to stay happy. Consumer goods are created by refining minerals. Alloys are an advanced resources you need to build ships or star bases in the game. Just like consumer goods, these are created by refining minerals. Influence is a very esoteric resource. It's kind of like the mana of Stellaris. You can find ways of getting more of it, for instance by getting more power projection. Generally speaking, you use influence for expanding the reach of your empire, engaging in diplomacy with other empires, or doing external nefarious deeds. Unity is a very unique resource that is a little bit like research. It represents the internal unification of your empire and how cohesive they are. If you click on the Unity, you'll open the traditions tree. When you've saved up enough Unity, you'll be able to purchase traditions which act somewhat like technologies, giving you some unique bonuses. Unity is produced by priests, bureaucrats and politicians across your empire. Like any good 4X game worth its salt, research plays a key part in Stellaris. Research can be produced in a variety of ways, through research stations built in orbit of a research deposit, or planetary-based researches in your empire. You can accumulate monthly research points. Next up we have rare resources. You really don't need to worry about these too much, but for upgraded buildings and upgraded components on your ships, you'll need to find some rare resources in the galaxy or refine them from minerals. Empire size, what used to be called empire sprawl, represents how big your empire is. But a larger empire has more pops, more colonies, and more territorial distance between everything. That makes it harder to maintain. At larger empire sizes, you need more technology points to unlock technologies and more unity to complete traditions. This represents the administrative burden of having a bigger empire. Envoys represent our will amongst the galaxy. They can do a host of things from diplomatic tasks, they can be present in the galactic community voting for Galactic Senate resolutions, they can also maintain our federation and, crucially, be used as spies. But you will first have to discover aliens before you'll find any use for them. The number written below Empire population tells us what the population of our empire is. Our starbase capacity represents the number of upgraded starbases we can have in our empire. At the center of our solar system, we start with a single upgraded starbase. If we go over our starbase capacity of 3, each of our starbases will incur increased maintenance costs, and that will be very punitive. You generally want to stay below your starbase capacity. The naval capacity represents how many ships we can have. Naval capacity represents the total size of our military in Stellaris. This means how many ships we can put out before it becomes an administrative burden on our empire. All of your ships will have an energy and alloy upkeep cost, and if you go over your naval capacity, that cost will scale up in a punitive way. If you'd like to buy Stellaris Overlord and also support this channel, you can do so by following the link down in the description and purchasing it on the Humble Bundle store. And there's also a sale on most of the Stellaris DLC until the 24th of May. Before we unpause, you should probably start queuing up some orders for your ships. You start the game in possession of a single science ship with a single scientist. Science ships and scientists are crucial to begin surveying other systems around your empire. First, we should go to the galaxy map by either pressing M or clicking on the icon down here at the bottom of the screen. From here, we can get a good overview of the geography of the galaxy. If we zoom out, we can see our empire, the United Nations of Earth, are a tiny speck amidst a vast cosmos. What you'll want to do is select your science ship, which you can do so either by selecting it in the game, or on the right hand side here, you can left click on it in the outliner, and then right click on a system you'd like to survey and click Survey System. By holding Shift down and doing this, you can also queue up further survey orders. We also start the game with a construction ship. Construction ships are crucial for building star bases, that's how we claim other systems and bring them into the fold of our empire, as well as building mining and research outposts. With this construction ship selected, I can right click on Mars, which as you can see here has a mineral deposit, and then I can queue up the building of a mining station. If you have enough minerals, you can also right click on an entire system and queue up all of the available mining or research stations in that system. Each mining or research station will have a base cost of 100 minerals. Now that we've got our construction and science ship queued up, we can unpause the game and start exploring. But what about the planet Earth? What kind of state is Earth in the year 2200? I've opened the planetary management screen by either clicking here on Earth. I can alternatively zoom in on the system view and click on Earth here. Now this is another complicated screen, but don't worry, we're going to break it down. The main page here is the planet summary. This tells us most of what we need to know about this world. From top to bottom we have the name. If you click on the name, you can either rename the planet randomly using one of those names from your name lists, or simply change the name yourself. The planet's designation will provide some small bonuses to the planet, the type of world it is, as well as the habitability of our pops living here. The size of our planet tells us how many districts we can fit on this world, and that will define the economy of this world. Your homeworld will always start with a governor. They might have a special trait which does something interesting, and a skill level that provides some minor bonuses. You might also have some special events ongoing. In this case, the planet Bob has prosperously unified and now gets some nice bonuses to happiness, amenities, and resource output, which will expire 20 years after the game has started. Next up is the stability of our planet. Anything above 50 is good, and below 50 you need to start worrying. Planets with low stability can revolt, and generally it is a really tough time for you as an overlord. The population represents how many pops there are on this planet. Population in Stellaris is split down into individual units called a pop. We can also see the crime on the planet. Anything below 30% is fine. The amount of available housing. Your pops do need somewhere to live. If there's no available housing, they'll stop growing. The number of available amenities. Amenities represents the planetary infrastructure and jobs dedicated towards filling the day-to-day needs of the population. This is their bread and circuses. Anything positive will give a boost to happiness for your empire, and anything below zero will be a bit of a problem. Then we have available jobs and unemployment. If unemployment is zero, you probably don't need to build anything on this planet because there are no pops without a job. And that takes us over to what districts and buildings do. Generally, districts will add some amount of housing. They'll also give you some jobs. Jobs are what provides resources in this game. Pops work jobs and then they do stuff.
What is my purpose?
You pass butter.
Oh my god.
City districts will give you extra housing, and they'll also unlock these crucial building slots. Industrial districts will provide you with artisan and metallurgist jobs, allowing your pops to refine minerals into those advanced resources we talked about earlier. Generator districts provide technicians, which give you energy credits. Mining districts provide miners, which give you minerals. And agriculture districts provide the most hated job in the game, and that's farmers. You probably don't want farmers, but generally speaking, you kind of need them, because you need food. Every planet will have a planetary capital, in this case the administration, that provides some housing, some amenities, some building slots, 2 politicians, which unfortunately you have to have in Stellaris. Even in the far future, you can't get away from politics. and finally an enforcer. As you can see, when I hover over any of these buildings or districts, it tells me the approximate job production and approximate job upkeep. We'll also start with a couple of other buildings that will provide some other jobs. The Features tab, if we click on it, shows us what features are on our planet that contribute to the possible number of districts we have available. The features directly impact which districts we can build on a planet. We might also have some tile blockers. By spending energy credits to remove them, we increase the total number of districts we can build, and sometimes we also get some nice bonuses, like a free pop being created when we clear the sprawling slum. That means clicking the sprawling slum is a great idea to do right at the start of the game, if you have the energy available. We can see the trade value being generated on our planet. Generally speaking, this should be converted directly into energy, unless you've been doing something crazy with it, and the planetary production. These are all the resources the planet is making. At the moment, we don't have a deficit, but if we were sucking up more of a resource than we were outputting, that would be shown here as well. The last thing I haven't covered is the decisions. By clicking on decisions, we get a whole bunch of, yep, you've guessed it folks, decisions that we can enact on our planet. These generally have a cost. Usually it's something like Unity or possibly consumer goods. They will last for a certain amount of time, some of them are indefinite, and provide some bonuses or changes to the planet. You don't need to look at this right at the start of the game though. The next tab is the Population tab. This shows us which jobs our pops are working. If we hover over any of these icons, they represent a specific job, and the number underneath will tell us how many pops are working that job. As you can see, none of our pops are currently working the Enforcer job, and that's perfectly fine. We don't have very much crime, so we don't need any police. A common mistake made at the start of the game is trying to build lots and lots of different districts and buildings to increase your resources and your economy, but not having the pops. Generally speaking, you only want to have a few extra available jobs, and you definitely don't want to have any unemployment. But it won't help you to massively spam out a bunch of districts right at the start. Now we can also get a look at some of the pops here. So we have different classes of population. Ruler pops, they are the top jobs in your empire. Specialists, they are kind of middle level jobs, and workers. Once a pop has been promoted up to a higher class of pop, for instance from worker to specialist, it will take them time to demote down to a lower class. So if we expand out one of these tabs, now we can actually see some of the individual pops working the job. If I click on an individual pop, we will get a whole host of statistics about that pop. We can find out their specific happiness and what is making them happy, their political power, as happiness and political power have a direct impact on your stability, crime, empire size, housing needs, amenities usage, their production and upkeep. There's lots of information here. We can also see all of the rights affecting this specific citizen, along with their specific ethic, which in this case is egalitarian. By increasing and decreasing job priority, we can manually change how many pops are working specific jobs. By removing the pops from the artisan jobs, we've now created unemployment. And as you can see, it's going to take quite a few days before these specialists will be demoted down to workers. During that time, they'll have reduced happiness for being unemployed and won't be contributing to our society. The last thing on this tab is the demographics. From here we can see the pops that are currently growing. We're currently growing a new human pop. The growth progress, how many growth points are being added every month. Now that's split up into base growth plus some logistical growth. What you need to know, what's important, is that as long as your current population is around half of your planet capacity, you'll have some positive pop growth from logistic growth. That, in this case, is the plus 1.14. Later on, if we start building some robots or doing some cloning, we might get pop assembly, and in some very bad cases, if there are unwanted species, if we are purging, we might end up with population decline. This is the army screen. You won't need to worry about that for quite a while, and the same can be said about the holding screen. But I'm curious to know what's brought you to this video and what brought you to Stellaris. If you'd like to tell me why you're playing Stellaris and what you find interesting about the game, please let me know down in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an event. An event is kind of a story-based piece of content that will have some sort of outcome and give you some lovely flavor text. Stellaris is a story-based game, and a lot of what happens in this game is driven by the event system. For instance, here we've just surveyed the planet Alpha Centauri 3 and we found the discovery of alien life. This gives us a nice little bonus to our society research. As you can see, after we've discovered alien life, we've had another event fire where the people of Earth are now reacting to this discovery. This is how we can have all sorts of interesting and fantastic stories played out through the game Stellaris. Sometimes events will have multiple options. Here we can choose how we want to set our first contact protocols. Unfortunately, because of the type of ethics we've chosen, we are unable to set our contact protocols too aggressive. That means we can only choose to be cautious or welcome the Xenos in with open arms. The galaxy is a dark place full of terrors, and that's why I generally recommend a cautious approach. We've also had a new notification pop up. This is telling us we've now got enough Unity to buy one of those great traditions I was talking about earlier. If we click on it, it's going to take us straight over here to the tradition window, and from here we can select one of the many traditions available to us in the game. Expansion is definitely a fun one to start with first. While you're deciding something like which tradition you would like, you can always pause the game, and that means nothing else is going to happen while you're making a decision. That can be very useful and very important when playing a game as complicated and as deep as Stellaris. Now that I've got enough minerals saved up and I'm about to run out of available jobs, it's time to build another building. There are a vast array of buildings available to us. Generally speaking, I'd recommend you build some research labs for extra science, administrative offices for extra Unity, or alloy foundries for extra alloys right at the start of the game. Alternatively, if you'd like to improve your basic economy, for instance, we don't have many minerals being produced, we could build a mining district, and that's going to help as well. Don't worry, there are so many different ways of playing this game though, it's very hard to choose something completely wrong. It would be rude of me not to give you a very important tip at this point in the game as well, and that is to use the galactic market, or at the start of the game, the internal market. You can open that one by picking it from this option on the left hand side, and here we have a whole bunch of different menus we can open. These are quite important, but I won't be going through them right now, or clicking on one of the resources at the top of the screen. Now we can either buy resources for energy credits or sell them for energy credits as well. Simply choose the resource we want to pick. In this case, I want more minerals, and I can buy up to 500 at a time. You can also set up monthly trades, and these can be useful if you want to increase your monthly production without massively increasing the costs. Because as you can see here, when I bought 500 minerals, the base unit price went up from 1 to 1.1. Yes, as you buy or sell more of a resource, the prices will change. Our scientist in Alpha Centauri has also found something rather cool, and that is an anomaly. Like events, anomalies are another great story-based way of exploring the game. By setting our scientists to research these anomalies, we might get some interesting bonuses or even possibly set off a unique event chain. Once you've fully surveyed a system, the text underneath it will appear solid white. Now we can select our construction ship, right click on the system in this galaxy map, or in the solar system map we could click on the main star. By choosing to build a starbase, we will increase the size of our empire and add that system to our empire. You must first take a system with a starbase before you can colonize a planet in that system. Now, as you can see, there is a lovely green planet here available. I can either left click on this planet and click the colonize button and choose which type of species I'd like to throw down here, or I could manually click on my shipyard on the right, click on the shipyard option and choose a type of ship to build. In this case, obviously I'd want a colony ship. The easiest way to colonize though is to use this colonize button. We can then choose the name of the planet and begin the process of colonization. This is going to take some time. First the colony ship has to be built, then it has to fly out here to Alpha Centauri 3, then it has to land and set up the colony. Once it's done that, you'll have a world with no districts on it, only a colony capital, and no other buildings built. From there, what you do with that planet is entirely up to you. Before I finish this idiot's guide, I think it's very important I go through what each of these menus does on the left hand side. Contacts will show us all of the different empires we've met in the galaxy, and we can then engage in diplomacy or espionage through this screen. The situation log will allow us to see some of the ongoing situations in our empire. We can also see all of the anomalies we haven't yet completed, and on the victory screen we can see how well the game is going for us. We've already covered the market, so I won't talk about that again. From the planet and sector screen we can automate our planets and sectors, You don't need to worry about this at the beginning of the game, and you probably won't need to worry about this until quite a bit later, so I'm not going to cover it for now. The expansion planet is very nice. From this screen, we can see all of the different surveyed planets, or possibly just colonizable planets in the galaxy. We can also directly go to the colonizable planets and attempt to colonize them. This is one of the easiest ways to make sure you're not missing out on some prime real estate.
It's free real estate.
The Policies tab allows us to define the policies of our empire. There are a whole bunch of different things here, but I'll let you discover exactly what they do for yourself. Think of these as the laws that govern your empire. Next we have the edicts. Every empire will have a specific edict cap, and each edict will do something interesting and cost some unity. As long as the unity of your edict combined does not exceed your edicts fund, you will not have to pay any of the regular unity you are producing. So I can trigger Fortify the Border, which will give me some great extra starbase capacity and increase the upgrade speed of my starbases. And as you can see, that won't decrease the amount of unity I'm producing. As your empire size goes up though, be careful. Edict cost will increase. In the society management screen, we can see our traditions. Once you complete a tradition, you'll be able to take a nice ascension perk. These have some sort of great bonus which will really help your empire improve. If you have different DLC content, there are some really unique and interesting ascension perks that can completely change and shape the way your empire behaves. We also have the relic tab here. If you uncover some relics, they'll appear here. Next up is the ship designer. For your first game, I'd recommend you don't turn off auto-generated designs. That means the automation of Stellaris will handle your designs. As you want to improve at the game though, you can make much better designs as a human player. To do that, you simply need to turn off auto-generate designs, and then you can start changing up the designs for yourself and making some crazy new designs that the computer won't have thought of. The Fleet Manager tab is an interesting tab that allows you to manage, yep, you've guessed it, the fleets in your empire. You can set designs for certain classes of ship to be added to the fleets, as well as causing to be reinforced by spending your alloys, and you can even disband and delete fleets from here as well. All of these fleets should appear in the right hand side on your outliner. The technology window also has a nice cool icon that lets you see which technologies you've already researched, and if you click on the change research, you can always change the option if you don't like what you're currently completing. The factions tab allows you to look at the current ethics represented in the population of your empire. As the game goes on, factions will form. They will have different political agendas. If you complete those agendas, the population those factions represent will be happier and give you bonuses, and if you don't complete those agendas, well, let's just say they might not be very happy. As you meet other empires, you may want to go to war with them. In order to take things from them, you'll have to open the Claims tab, click on Systems, and make claims. If you want to do a conquest war, and that means you want to take territory from your enemies or potential enemies, it is essential that you claim their systems before you go to war. Otherwise, you won't be able to get them. And once you're at war, the cost of making claims is astronomically higher than before the war. The Species tab is where we manage the rights of individual populations in our empire. We can set the rights all the way from the citizenship class and living standards over to the migration and population controls, along with slavery rights and, yes, purge types. If you've heard anything about Stellaris, you should know there is an economic argument to purging people and slavery. Sometimes it is economically beneficial, though morally unpalatable. We can also see what the makeup of our empire is, that is, how many pops of different species are in our empire, along with the different traits we have. As the game goes on, this tab is probably going to fill up quite a lot and will become quite interesting to manage, though there are ways of removing all other species types so that you only have a couple to deal with. Lastly, we have leaders. Leaders represent the creme de la creme of our empire and are split into 4 categories. Governors, which can be recruited, manage our planets and our sectors and give us some bonuses to production and other things there. Scientists manage our research along with our surveying and discovery. You need to put scientists on science ships and send them out into the galaxy to discover brave new worlds. Admirals can be recruited and placed on fleets. An admiral will improve the combat effectiveness of a fleet, increasing things like their weapons range, or possibly decreasing their upkeep depending on their traits, and providing some base bonuses to their fire rate. Lastly, generals can be put on armies, but if you'll pardon the pun, generally speaking, you won't really need armies that much in your first game until you come to Conquering Worlds, and even then, you don't really need generals. Be careful, leaders cost unity, and the more leaders you have, the higher the cost of unity to recruit your next leader, so don't hire too many leaders. This guide, a complete idiot's guide to Stellaris, has only been covering the base game with no DLC. But DLC for Stellaris is the spice of life. It really does add a lot to this game. If you'd like to know more about which DLC I think you should get and which you should ignore, click the video on screen now.